start, and I'm very glad to greet again Dr. Helal.
Okay, thank you. I think to the ground, where, as some of you have asked him, some questions about realities and concepts is, are good, definitions are excellent, but when it comes to reality, I think we have to realize how can we use it. Let me go quickly. This is the content of the presentation. There is no animation at all. It's crude. It's really tough that you would work with me on that. It's not like Volker, but I'm sure that you would like it because it will touch your real problems. The question that has been raised by my colleague from Jordan about the decision maker, the ministers. I have been in this situation before, and I change the experience with you. How can we solve it, etc. We will divide the presentation into two sections. The first section is why equivalence, etc., and what is the methods being used. We are not talking about ideal situation. We are talking about reality, what we have been doing. After that, a brief history about the Arab states, what have been done, some cases, real cases that we have used, and let us go on. First, we will go about the first part. Why equivalence? And there is some major issues that I would like you to share with us and discuss. Now, why? Because there is a greater mobility of students, internationalization, as Arthur could talk to you. There is an important increasing role of private sector in university education, and I think one of our colleagues asked the question about the private education, and when the student paying money, he is looking for something back. Some governments has a liberal policy of education. What is its effect on equivalency? The emergence of what we used to call the degree mills institutions. Now you have hundreds and thousands of institutions all over the world giving degrees. What is the value? As Volker said, do we have the same value? Are we looking for the same value from these institutes? We have in our countries some outposts of foreign universities. We have British, we have German, we have French universities everywhere in the world, other American, etc. Need for accreditation and the status of some institution, recognition of courses when even within European institution, if the course is not accredited by the sending institute, when the student will come back, he or she will suffer from the validation of this course, the need for verification of an institution and validation of degrees. Let us discuss a little bit about the definition, what we used to do, and a little bit more broader definition that we are using now. We used to say if someone come with study programs abroad, when he come to our countries, we should see his degree or his certificate as if he has been in our country. Nothing changed. Now, what we are trying to do is we say equivalence is a procedure. It's not one-to-one. It's a procedure that allows the recognition of a qualification. And this is why I said at the beginning, I'm happy that Volker has extended explanation about a qualification. Now we have a recognition as well. Recognition, it has some keywords. It's a formal assessment of qualification. And at the same time, there is some consequences on this recognition. The equivalence doesn't have any consequences except that you say it's equal, you can get in. But the recognition can give you some more step to go in. If your program is recognized, you can go to work or you can go to university. We will talk about examples. We will talk maybe during our discussion, we will have what we call the full-time equivalent student. He talks about a student that would come 1 day per week for a certain period. How can we calculate the full-time equivalent student? What is the regularity body? And this is something that is typical for the region, is that we have most of our education system is controlled by the state. It is a centralized system, and we have what we call a regulatory body. In our case, we have what we call the Equivalence Committee, and in other countries, it has other names. What is the purpose of equivalence? It has two purposes, either for the academia, and I think it has been developed lately, and it's to go to the university, either for a program, for a PhD, etc., or for the market, which is very important as well. For example, in Egypt, to give you the example, in Egypt, if someone has a degree outside Egypt, and then when he comes back, in order to work in Egypt, he has to go with his degree to the regulatory body at the Supreme Council of University, and he should have the equivalence. Otherwise, he cannot work. And this is why, for the market needs, there is two situations. Either if the job to which you will be employed is regulated, it means that regulated by the government, you should go to the regularity body and have this equivalence. If not, it's up to the employer to take you or not to take you. Historical background. The first recognition, formal recognition between countries, it has been in 1894 between Ecuador and Venezuela. And since that, there has been many efforts, and especially UNESCO took the initiative. And I summarize here very briefly what happened. The first convention was the Arab and European state. It is the Mediterranean first convention developed by UNESCO in 76, 78 for Arab states, 79 with the European Commission. The UNESCO also General Conference did good jobs in 93, and till we have the Lisbon Convention. Now we will go about the methods of equivalence and what are the main criteria recognizing a foreign institute, and something that is interesting, which is the equivalence of technical experience. There are three methods or approaches for equivalence. The first is the decentralized assessment by the university or the faculty committee. This is common in countries where universities are completely autonomous, independent. They took the decision for equivalence, but this equivalence does not force other universities in the country to be accepted. For example, if University 1 has accepted this student, it doesn't mean that the other universities should have accepted them. This is the decentralized system, and it's common in Europe, it's common in the United States, but it's not common in our countries. The second approach is the centralized assessment by a government and the regulatory body, which is in countries where the education is completely controlled by the state, and there is a regulatory body, there is a committee for equivalence, and it is a binding for all institutions. No one can not accept this equivalence. The third one, which is the bilateral and the multilateral agreement between countries, and this usually and the governments usually done after consultation with universities. The ministries or the government never go in a multi or a bilateral recognition or equivalence agreement without going to the university or to the academia first before going there. And once it's done, it should be compulsory for the universities. But the case is not, and I'll explain to you. Now, we have some cases. We have centralized Palestine, the Ministry of Education, Egypt, Supreme Council of University, Cyprus, even Pakistan, it is centralized. We have the centralized, like Belgium, France, USA, etc. if you would like to go and do the equivalence, I'm a student coming to you, and what you, as a member of a committee, should do in order that you go to the procedure of equivalence. The higher educational system, I'm talking about a system because we have different systems. We have the one-year system. Still, some countries have one-year system. There is a two-year semester, 2 terms. There is the credit hours. There is this is the Anglo-Saxon system, and there is the CTS and LMG. And now there is a new trend coming up, especially in the States and relatively in England, which is the quality credit framework. It's something that is imitating a little bit the ECTS, but keeping the credit hours and the qualification framework in the same time. The committee should look at the duration of the study, the course content, the examination standards, the admission criteria to the program to which you have this degree, the status of the institution, if the institution that you have got the degree from is accredited or not, the credibility of the institution sometimes prevails, the recognition of the qualification in the country of origin. For example, we faced some problems that students have degrees and certificates from some countries. When you ask the authority of this country about this institution, they don't recognize this institution in the host country. And this is something about ethics that maybe Dr. Fuad didn't have the time to talk about. And the bilateral agreement. Give you an example of the bilateral agreement. In spite of that, we have signed an agreement with a country. When a student from Egypt going there, they have to do the same thing again. He has to submit all these papers again in order to be validated. This is something concerning maybe typically Arab region, which is, if you would like to recognize a foreign institute, either in your country, based in your country, or abroad, you have to submit all this. I'm not going to this. This is an exhaustive list. It's not exhaustive list. That you know, it's a bureaucratic system that we have to go through. Now, I think this is something that has been touched lightly by Volker, and it's of crucial importance to us, which is how can we validate or make the equivalence of the technical and the experience of somebody, which I asked Volker the question about the permeability. He said in his talk about the permeability of a system, and told him, what is the permeability? He said that a student can go everywhere. The system is permeable. You can go horizontal, you can go diagonal, you can go vertical. It means that I can go, as he explained, I can go to the technical school for some years. I can go out of the school with a diploma or a certificate. I can work a little bit. I gain experience, and I would like to go to the university again and continue in this degree. To my knowledge, this is a new approach that is not yet applied. We tried in Egypt. We have difficulties. I'll give you an example, a typical example of what we can do. We put some. We started in Egypt to do that, and we put some, let us say, some criteria in order to facilitate how can we do it. The candidate should be at least a high school graduate. We don't accept, for the time being, we don't accept someone that he or she doesn't have a high school. He or she should have worked at least 5 years in the field relevant to the program he would like to continue, and show proofs that there is some sort of exams and tests that he has to go through to show that he got the knowledge, he got the skills, he got the competencies that he can go in other words, in the new languages that Volcker has used, he should have the ILOs of someone that have got through the program before going to the new program. Now we will go to the Arab states. And the Arab states, the legal framework for equivalence is very important. And we have two legal frameworks. The first one is the Convention of UNESCO of '78. All Arab countries have signed it, but unfortunately it's not active. We used it, but it's not active. And there is some decision of the ministers of higher education in 2002, in 2004, etc., every 2 years, that any student graduated from a recognized public universities in the Arab countries, whenever he or she goes to any other Arab countries, he should not have any problem of equivalence. This is the decision of the ministers, but it's not active. You know, if you come to Egypt, they will do the same thing. If I will go to Jordan or any other country, they will have to do it. And I put you here some resources that we can use. These resources can be used and are used in order to help the academia and the academic institutions and the professional institutions in the Arab countries to do equivalence. I'll not go through. Now we will go to some practice. In the past, we were all have the influence of the pre-university education. What it means? It means that it's identical. And I remember in 2002, I was in Egypt, and someone came to me and said, listen, Hany, I went to the Supreme Council of University to have a degree. He got a Bachelor of Engineering from Philippines, and he would like to get the equivalence. And he went to the Supreme Council of University. He went through the procedure, and they told him, listen, it's not equivalent. Why? It's not equivalent because you didn't take calculus in the second year of secondary education. This is the mentality. Yes, it's true. I'm not joking. It happened live, you know. And we went there and said, listen, this is ridiculous. It doesn't work like this. He has a Bachelor of Science. And if he fulfills all the requirements, and he should. Again, this is not the minister. This is not the president of the committee. This is the mindset of people. This is our mindsets. People who sit in the committee, they are not bureaucrats. They are professors like us. And this is why it's very important that we agree on one mindset that we should use. Now, what we are doing was still a little bit influenced by the pre-university mindset. It means one-to-one. But there is some evolution towards other system, and I'll talk about it. Like the one-year system could be equivalent to the 2 terms, and it could be harmonized with the credit hours and the ECTS and European system. And the future, and I think this is why we are here, is to go to ILO-based system, as Volcker said. And there is we should not go, because in equivalence everything is allowable. We should not go to the maximum requirement. We should go to the minimum requirement that the student or the candidate should have. And we can talk about the workload, the total workload of the student, etc. I think you talked about it. And the last thing, I think this will take some time, this is the quality credit framework. Let me talk about some examples, 3. The first one is, because we are a Tempest project, I think, this is the Tempest project that is a Mediterranean. a network for recognition of qualification and the quality assurance. And the objective is to prepare for a regional network. And there was some country, Algeria, Egypt, Morocco, and Tunisia, France, Italy, and Slovenia, Netherlands, Formation Center, and the Council of Europe. And it has established a MERIC. And this is the first time I hear about the MERIC is today. I have been the minister for 5 years, and this is the first time I hear that there is a MERIC, a network. Now, let us go to another example, very interesting, and it shows how can we develop and progress in the procedure. I'm talking and I'm emphasizing about the procedure. It's not one-to-one. This is the qualification framework where we can use the equivalence base when we can use the qualification framework as a base for the equivalence. This is the engineering sector in Egypt. As Volker showed you, we have the country, we have etc., and we have the sector. And the engineering sector in Egypt is one of the active sectors, because I'm an engineer, and it's working well. And they have a framework. This framework, it gives what is the qualification of engineer. It gives, we will not go on it, and the skills and the competencies, attitudes, etc. And what is important for the equivalence is this is the reference framework. This is where the old thinking and the new thinking. Before we say this student in engineering has studied language, English language, and if the other one didn't study English languages, it is not equivalent. This is, the framework is changing. We need a university requirement. Any graduate in engineering should have a university requirement, a faculty requirement, and a discipline requirement. And again, it applies to all. It's not only to engineering. And for engineering, the university requirement, he or she should have social and humanities between 7 and 10% of the education, soft skills development 2 and 3%. And the faculty requirement, etc. Economics and business management, 46. Engineering culture, 46. Mathematics and the basic sciences. This is important for an engineer. It's between 18 and 22. And now we will go to the discipline where the engineer will have his degree and experience. Basic engineering science between 20 and 30%. Engineering application design 20 and 30%. Project and field training 7 to 10%. Okay? Now, we set up our framework. It's fantastic. And we started to work. We discovered in Egypt that we have, the students actually have 30 contact hours per week for 15 weeks for 10 semesters, 5 years. Engineering in Egypt is 5 years. It means that he or she should pass through 4,500 contact hours. And or the equivalent of this in credit hours, harmonized, is between 168 and 180 credit hours. Engineers coming from the States, and this is a real case, and we made a comparison study, comparability of systems between the Egyptian and US system, and we discovered that the engineer coming from the United States is only 4 years. It's not 5 years. No need to stay 5 years. Why? And the ILOs of the engineer coming from the States is exactly the ILOs of the engineer coming from Egypt. It means that we give student much more blah, 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 or something that have been repeated in other years. The proposed is to reduce our system, our framework, to 24 hours per week for 15 weeks for 8 semesters, and only 144 hours. And this is the new framework. Whatever any engineer coming from anywhere in the world, even from Europe. Now Europe, we will discuss about Europe because the French is 5 years but with master degree. German is 4 years, something like that, but with another year, etc. But whoever is coming from anywhere, he or she should have between 8 and 11% university requirement, between 30 and 35 faculty requirement, and between 50 and 60 discipline required. Okay, this is unfortunately in Arabic because we didn't have the time to translate. But this is really a good example, and I apologize for not having the time to translate it. You look here, this is, I'll show it. This is what is called the university requirement. And we say here this is social and humanities. The student should have 11 credit hours or between 7 and 20. This is for electrical engineer. And what is interesting here is that he or she should have, can choose between Arabic languages, English languages, law, contracts, human rights, option in arts, etc. It means that whoever is coming from abroad, he should have he should have 11 or about 8% humanities. Whatever is, you can have Arabic and I can have English, and it should be equivalent. This is the concept, is that we don't go to one by one. We go to a broader framework in the equivalence, etc. Same here. But when you go deeper, you find even here, for example, this is engineering application. You have also, a good choice of courses and the contents because you don't look for one-to-one. Now, this is the first case, that is the framework. We would like to go to the framework. Framework means much broader judgment rather than one-to-one. This is, No, this is national. It is the centralized system in Egypt. Whenever the Supreme Council of University decides, it applies to all universities, private and public. Now, this is a really very interesting case. This is after 5th of January. We have in Egypt the engineering sector, and you have what we call the industrial engineering sector. And students coming from the industrial education sector would like to be readmitted to the Faculty of Engineering again to be engineers. This is a social image, and it became a problem in Egypt after the revolution. And again, this is something that we don't know, because the two systems are completely different. This is a professional system, educational, and this is another system. And this case has been developed by Professor Hany Helal and Dr. Mohammed Meged, who should come with us, but unfortunately, because of the visa problem, he didn't come. What they did, they adopted a new approach, comparison of mission, defined the 3 criteria, and here is the new concept, the ILOs, and they get into the course content and the contact hours, and we will see. And they define weights for the 3 criteria, and they get the equivalence. Okay, the Bachelor of the Bachelor of Industrial Engineering is 4 years. Graduate are teachers of secondary schools. Engineering are 5 years, preparatory year plus 4 subsequent focused year. And the program would like to know the entry point, where a graduate from industrial engineering would go to an engineering a program, and if there is some courses to be exempted or some courses to be added to them. And what they did is they compared the two qualifications based on mission and vision statement. And the skills, you know, the skills and the quality assurance, the skills competencies as mentioned by the quality assurance agency in Egypt. Second, they get 3 criteria: course learning outcomes, focused on the replacement on Bloom taxonomy diagram. We know that there is other criteria, but they used this one. Second one, which has been mentioned by Volker, the breadth and depth of the course contents. And third, the number of contact hours. And here is, again, the lectures, the tutorials, and the laboratory. And the committee gives some weighing factors for them. They put to know how we shifted from the old system to the new system. They give 60% on the ILOs and 25% on the content, and only 15% on the contact hours. And whenever the ILOs were not available, they went to the exams papers in order to get out the ILOs, etc. And what they did, they concluded that there is some basic courses that should obligatory be given to them, and most of the discipline would be exempted from some courses, and most of the courses of the 4 years of engineering studies have to be restudied. It means that they only gave equivalence to a portion of what they have studied before. Now we will go to the communication and the information, which is something that is concerning the region and the cooperation between countries. In Europe, they have the ENIC network, which has been established by the Council of Europe and UNESCO to implement Lisbon Recognition Convention, to develop policy and to give information. We know, I just know today that we have MERIC. I hope it will be a miracle later on. We have MERIC, but what can be done? I think this is something very important. And now let us conclude together. It's unfortunately the comparability and the method of equivalence is becoming, and recognition is becoming more and more complicated. Why? Because many disciplines, many systems, also the information and the communication is much more broader than before. There is a need to what we should agree on. First, we should agree on basic terminology. And I think this have been agreed this morning. Second, we should move from the equivalence of degrees to recognition of qualifications. I think this is a vital thing for us. Even if we are not able to establish our qualification framework, which is a very difficult task for us. We have been in Egypt for 5 or 6 years doing it, and someone claimed that he has done it, but it's on paper. But let us agree among experts that we should at least, if we don't have the qualification, as Volker said, use another one. Take this, take that. But at least put your mindset on the qualification mindset rather than the equivalence, the degrees mindset. It means that I would like to know what this person can do rather than what this person has learned. It's output measurement rather than input a measurement. let us again emphasize on the procedure and the criteria, rather than agree on lists of degrees and diplomas, recognized. I know in Egypt, we have a database of what has been recognized in Egypt. If you have the same degree from this institution, it's okay. If not, you are not. You have to go through the procedure. Let us build a database of best practice. I'm sure tomorrow we will listen to other experience from the region. I'm confident that we will learn about good practices or main difficulties that you have encountered that we may benefit from. And I think this is something that is valuable for us. And I think I'm looking to Arthur, I'm looking to Giorgio, Jacques. We need to activate the MIDNIC. I think we need to do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for a very clear and concise representation of what has been happening. I will not invite discussion contributions now, because I think we should save that to the panel. But are there any questions just that maybe you might not have understood something? Yes, just wait a sec, the mic is coming.
Sorry, are you proposing that the MEDNIC replaces MERIC or adding new structure?
No, to activate it.
Okay. Because MERIC exists, so why create?
Just activate it. Huh?
Okay. Okay, this then we will take this question to the panel discussion, I think. There's been another question by the gentleman from Morocco over there, and then one question from the lady here. Just a second for the gentleman in the back row.
Peut-être ma réflexion à propos de MERIC. Alors ça m'a surpris de voir ou d'entendre que l'Égypte vient de connaître l'existence de MERIC. Alors, juste un petit rappel.
Just a reminder, historical reminder, because the decision was made
Depuis 2006.
Was made in 2006.
Ça a été entériné
And
de la réunion à Rabat.
This was understood at the meeting of Rabat, and then again accepted, adopted in Paris at the UNESCO headquarters by the Bureau of the Euro-Mediterranean Convention, whose presidency was Mr. Barakets from Egypt. So, please, sir, just, I'm sorry. I just wanted questions now. Maybe you will contribute later. Yes, I'm talking about it tomorrow. Well, my question about the definition of the equivalences. You've talked about foreign degrees. There are French Moroccan experiences where we talk about degrees equivalences, which can be internal, in-house, domestic, for university degrees, private degrees. And when I saw the definition, well, I thought about the foreign degrees. The difficulty is that foreign degrees, not domestic national degrees. We had no difficulty with the national degrees because when we create a new degree or a national program, then it's obvious that before we start any program, we make sure that there is an equivalence. But someone who comes from abroad, we're never sure in advance whether this degree is...
Je vous donnerai la parole plus tard. Madame?
Soha Abdurrahman, Director of Non-Jordanian Higher Education Recognition and Scientific Certificates in Jordan, Equivalency. Now, I just have a question. Now, since there are many universities that started to apply the Purona program or Purona process, how do you deal with certificates and degrees coming from these universities? Do you recognize them, and do you equalize the degrees? Do you equalize their degrees, or do you have any conservation or something like this?
Any foreign degrees, you know, if
so you don't have to pinpoint anything. You don't have to put any kind of criteria or anything that students who graduate from such universities should be. These universities must be recognized or something like this?
We advise the students. If you go to the website of the ministry and the website of the council, we advise the students before being enrolled or admitted in a university, they ask beforehand if we recognize or this university may not be recognized. We do that, yes.
You do that, okay, thank you.
Even within, you know, nowadays education is a good business. And in Egypt there are some people who claim that they give certificates, diplomas, etc. nationally, that the ministry, you know, does not recognize these diplomas, and we advise the students to do that.
Okay, I have two more questions. The gentleman over there.
Thank you. Suhail Sultan from Palestine Polytechnic University. Thank you for the presentation, Dr. Hany. Just a point, I have a point here. You mentioned Palestine. In Palestine, we have a commission that is in charge of accrediting institutions and programs. We call it ACAC, Commission for Accreditation and Quality Assurance. And we have another body, it's a department at the Ministry of Education and Higher Education that is in charge of accrediting accrediting certificates from abroad. So we have two different bodies.
but you know, by the end of the day, it is centralized. It's not up to the university to say yes or no. It's up to this committee to say yes or no.
Yeah, it is
centralized, yes.
Okay, and the last question from the second row.
Thank you, Dr. Hany. I'm from Damascus University. I want you to ask you if we have such as a big number of students as Damascus University or Cairo University, should we make the same system for equivalence also for ECTS or credit hour system? Because I think now we have a decision in Syria to go to credit hour system, but we think that this is a wrong decision, and we cannot really begin to take this on our hand because of the number of students. Should you have the same problem?
Sure. You know, let us maybe, we can develop on this during the panel discussion. I don't think that all systems are valid for the number of students. ECTS or LMG and credit hours, I don't think that it has been made for mass education. You cannot apply ECTS on a faculty that it has 60,000 students, 10,000 students per year. I don't think that you can do that. You cannot establish the diploma supplement. You know, there is a variety. But yes, we have faculties like this in the region.
Yeah, but my university has 88,000 students, and we just got the diploma supplement label. So we are not
talking about a university. We are talking about a faculty. We are talking about a university of 250,000 students.
Ah, okay.
You see?
It's even bigger.
You know, let us, I think this is...
save that for the panel.
The
size.
This is something that I think we can develop during the day But I have, we put a system in Egypt that, a concept that say, we cannot apply ECTS as it is for the time being. But what we need to do, this is concerning with the equivalence, is that our system should be harmonized with the ECTS. It means, in scientific sentence, our system should be readable to Bologna. If Bologna is readable to us now, but if our system is not readable to them, your student cannot go there, but their student can come to you. Let us discuss it. I think this is very interesting.
Is it a question, sir? Yes. Okay. Then the mic goes to the gentleman over there.
Monsieur Boukezata du ministère de l'enseignement supérieur algérien.
Higher Education Ministry from Algiers. I have two questions to Mr. Hany. Do you think, when you're sorry about the centralizing trend when granting equivalencies, do you think that our universities, especially in Arab countries, have enough tools to give this autonomy in order to grant equivalencies? Second question, in the framework of this new trend for the recognition of learning outcomes evaluation, our Arab countries can contribute to universities, with universities, to establish these equivalencies so that the students may be able to follow their studies. For the first questions, I do agree with you.
Les circonstances, l'environnement ne permet pas, pour le moment, de donner l'autorité.
Them to give the authority to universities, to give the authority for equivalencies. It's more political, right? But I have to say it.
I don't think that we can completely decentralize the authority of equivalence to universities for the time being. But if really you want the universities to be independent and autonomous, we have to do that. We can discuss about, not about the academia environment, but about the country environment. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Then I will thank you very, very much
Thank
indeed, and conclude this slot. We will have a different perspective or a similar perspective, we'll see, on the